All right. Welcome to the guide training. Today we've got about an hour and a half where we're going to sit with any of the guides who've been able to show up today, and we're going to go over some basic principles of what it means to be in the Complexity Adventures ecosystem, what it means to be a guide, what are the affordances of being a guide. I'm going to do this overview for about the first third, and then my wife Marie, who's a great facilitator, is going to help us learn facilitation first principles together and do some exercises to really get us kind of to know each other and to really into practice with these facilitation principles. So this is recorded because we are a global community. So any guides who can't make it, totally fine. This recording will be out there for you to watch after the fact. That being said, I just linked Jamboard in the nearby chat. So in Gather, in the bottom right, there's these two dialog boxes. So this is one affordance of Gather, is we can send messages to each other while we're in this space together. And so I just linked this Jamboard. Let me know if you have any trouble accessing it. But Jamboard is just a fun tool that we like to use because it's like a digital whiteboard. It's a way for me to not only broadcast some information to everyone here, but for it to be a dialogue and for people to be able to drop Post-its or talk, to us. It's like a bottoms up, tops down, fun little complex system. Yay! I love it. So, if you want to add a Post-it, there's a little Post-it button on the left here. You just click that. You can let us know how you're feeling excited. So you can drop that little Post-it down here. You can move them around. You can grab the laser pointer that someone was doing, which was fun. But this is just kind of to warm us up to recognize that most sessions in Complexity Adventures are meant to be interactive, actually. So a lot of us are used to conferences where it's mostly talks and broadcasting. That's kind of flipped on its head a little bit for Complexity Adventures. A lot of the times being a guide means designing a live session that's meant to facilitate interaction, and a lot of peer mentorship can be involved in the role. So we'll get into all that. Is it raining? Someone said, what? Yay, welcomed is good. We like that. Definitely, I'm on the coffee front. It's 10 a.m. in my time zone. Yay, so glad you're here too. So maybe what I should do before I get into any more context or anything, has anyone, reading the onboarding email or anything, is anyone confused about anything? Are there any questions right at the top that you want to go ahead and drop down here that we can cover? Otherwise, feel free to interrupt at any point. Oh, wow. Nice. All right, so I'm going to continue, but again, feel free to stop me at any point. If we go to slide 3, this is just a bit of what I'm going to go over in this first third. It's the same stuff that we're going over in the other pre-summit events. So we have the weekend, 28th to 30th, which is the big event where we're all together. All the live sessions are going. It's going to be literally 24/7 across all the time zones. Super fun. Before the 28th, we've got a series of events that we're calling pre-summit events. And these are just, accessibility is one of our big core values in this community. And it spreads out a period, a set of times to meet in different time zones that allow people to come and learn the tooling, get comfortable, get ready to join the 20th to 30th weekend experience. So this is the deck I actually go through in those sessions, and you're welcome to join those to really deep dive further. I'm probably going to skip a few things to free up some time this session to do a lot more interactive kind of guide focused work. But generally, what I'll talk about is, what is Complexity Adventures? What are the events in the community? What is this ecosystem we're in now? What are some of the roles in this system, such as organizers like myself, Daniel, Eric, several organizers around here right now, and then what does it mean to be a guide in this context? And that's really most key because everyone here to this training is showing up to be a guide and to learn what that means and how to best be that role. We're going to talk a little bit about the tooling. So right now we're in Gather. There's also an asynchronous text tool that's optional but encouraged that we'll talk about. And then there's something called Coda where our atlas is. That's kind of the single source of truth document that keeps us all synchronized in this distributed system we're in right now. Getting most out of the summit. And then instead of unstructured time, for this session, we'll be doing all the great facilitation exercises that Marie is bringing to the table. So I think if we just go to slide 4 together, And again, let me know if you're stuck on Jamboard getting to any of these slides. But let's just start by saying, like, why did you decide to become a guide? Or if any participants are here watching the guide training, what brought you here to be an adventurer? I just would love to know, what called to you. I think that's a really good way to start. I definitely agree on loving complexity. I think that's something that everyone in our community is the big unifier. We're a very big generalist umbrella for many different perspectives and backgrounds, but really a unifier for all of us is this idea of complex systems and components of a system interacting and producing, nonlinear effects or emergent patterns or nonlinear dynamics and just all these really cool self-organizing principles and stuff. And how do they work in one system versus another? Can we learn something in economics and bring it to social systems or bring it to technological systems? I think that's exciting. And that's definitely something I agree with. And being a guide is a really great affordance to learn by doing, because you get to bring your unique perspective and relationship to complexity to others. And that's one of the bigger values that adventurers get, I think, out of this is exposure to, in our case, in our cohort, about 27 or so guides are registered. So that's a lot of different perspectives to kind of root into and learn through. But I don't want to talk full time. So who wants to just share some of these that resonate with them that are up on the board right now? I like the bridges being built here. So Karine or Paul or Marie, what do you think about any of these being dropped right now?
I'll give one thought.
Sure.
As we thought about how to frame participation, we came to Adventurer to try to highlight that this isn't a full-time life experience for anyone. We're all on our own journeys in, through, / with complexity. So everyone's an adventurer, and then guides kind of step up in their own way. But it's just really exciting to connect with others who want to also open up that channel and maybe like co-inform or even collaborate on the work that we might be able to do together. And also just to highlight that it's not like lectures. Like there's thousands of hours and books on complexity, content, and topics. So we want to come together and do something different than that.
Totally. Why I love Adventure as this kind of rebranded participant title is it also highlights that, we're all on a complexity journey our whole life, and it really is a lifelong journey. And you're going to be constantly interfacing with complex systems in your life and in your careers. And, we want this community to be a backdrop for everyone as they go about their individual or even team learning journeys, where they can always come back to this community and bring their new experiences, bring, their new perspectives and maybe regeneralize them again or get them to, I'm at the library. Nice screen. And just constantly come back to the fold and into a new adventure or into something that challenges your assumptions or kicks you into a new trail. This is all really exciting. I'm definitely glad everyone's here. I think we're having fun with Jamboard, which is awesome. So quickly, just over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to cover some of the ecosystem, some of the ideas to make sure we're all on the same page. Definitely stop me at any point. I'm going to pause throughout just so people really have a chance to interrupt me and let me know if they're confused at all. But if there's one thing to take away from this onboarding event, it's this URL, which I'm going to drop in the nearby and room chats in Gather. This bit.ly URL is what we're calling the Atlas. So this is the single source of truth, the one document that has all information you would need to participate, to be a guide, to be in any of these roles. And so just showing you what that looks like, it looks like this, and I'll even go from the bit.ly to see that it connects to this CODA document. So I was mentioning earlier, there's three major tools in the Complexity Adventures ecosystem. Gather, which we're in now, and maybe Daniel, while you're recording, if you just want to shrink, like show Gather real quick. That's Gather. This is an asynchronous audio video space. We have little avatars. When you go into a couch together, you can have a private conversation. It's just a fun, immersive kind of environment where we spend most of our time in this event. We've got Keybase, which I'll show shortly, and that's just a optional but encouraged text backend where everyone can stay connected even when they're not synchronous, like in Gather. Coda is the third component, and you can actually see them here in this atlas. There is a deep dive page to learn more about each one, but Coda is kind of like a wiki. It's similar to Notion or other tools you may have used, and it's just a really comprehensive way in one page to have a bunch of nested sub pages, have information, have links, have tables. So this is our single source of truth. It's in this Coda tool. And the one page that matters the most is the one I just linked, this bit.ly. So this bit.ly here will bring you here, which is of our whole community information. It's a type of event, a biannual summit. It's the April summit specifically. And it's got an overview here. And it's got some other pre-summit onboarding events if you'd like to attend. All times are in UTC because we're a global community, and the Gather space is right here. So every event's for our cohort is going to be in this Gather space. We've got the program for the weekend, which is starting to fill out. We're working with all the guides and getting all their awesome sessions lined up. And like I was saying, it's going to be 1 hour on, 1 hour off. So they're going to be live sessions followed by unstructured time, where you'll have time to do office hours. You can keep chatting with somebody. You could take a break. You can work with teams. We'll talk about team dynamics shortly. That's kind of a part of the weekend experience. It's really fun. And we've got even a list of all the people. So right now we've got 27 guides registered. You can see their Complexity Adventure usernames. We've got about 48 adventurers, aiming to get to about 100 or even 150 if we can, and 4 organizers. So this is really all the information you need. And if you'd like, there's other sections here to explore. So if you were really curious about the mission and purpose of our community of practice, well, here's a page on it, right? The community values for our community of practice. This is, for instance, having respect to be really central to our organization. That lets us explore diversity in a way that's really productive and helpful. Or Complexity Adventures itself being a complex system, and the way organizers think when we organize this community using applied complexity principles. There's information about the tools, like I was saying, Gather, Keybase, we'll talk about in a second, Coda, and any of the roles. If you're interested, maybe I want to be an organizer at some point, there's a page here for it. So really what I want to highlight is that this one URL is the key to everything. I bookmark it. You're going to be constantly going back to it. It will be evolving as the program fills out everything. It's the living document that is the main thing for us. Let me stop there. Any questions, thoughts, and then I'll continue.
I'll add one note.
Sure.
We're coming together in our different lives from around the world with a lot of pre-play and replay and reconnection, but centered around this summit so that for those who want to be exposed to new ideas, they're ideas. For those who want new people, they're people. Those looking to catalyze or start a project, there are projects. So just under the spirit and umbrella of complexity and all these different ways of knowing and working with it, this is a space that we actually co-create. And so ask for forgiveness, not permission, not in the extreme, but just engage with what is happening, because there's not like a show that adventurers are spectators at. It really is going to happen in a largely unrecorded, largely peer-to-peer fashion.
Yeah, the interactions are the event, and that's very in line with complex systems, right? Where the interactions of the components and the novel information that's being generated by those interactions is really what produces the emergent magic of a cohort of people, or a community or an economy. That's really what we're here to explore and see together, is all this amazing pattern formation that you would never could have predicted going into it. So I'm very excited to be there here with everyone. Some other things that I am just going to gloss over because I did hit on it already is you can definitely read about the organization, our mission, our values, and everything at the Atlas. I think it's a good idea to do that just to make sure, these values have been co-created over time, and they actually are overdue for another pressing of, looking at all the feedback and generating a new iteration. But this is what we've come to over several years now of kind of best practices of how to be an adventurer, how to be a guide, how to show up for the community and kind of build something that's sustainable and long-term with each other. So head to the Atlas if you want to read anything about this. Similarly, for any of the roles, we're all here to learn complexity by doing. That's kind of one important principle or value that you could read about in our community. It's that, learning about complexity is often best when you're working on a real tangible system in front of you, hopefully with others. And applied complexity is kind of the lens that we're really focusing on versus purely theoretical complexity in this space. So roles are a great way to learn complexity by doing. There's a lot of work. Definitely, a lot of people here could attest to this to keep this community running and as smoothly as it does. And all the roles are voluntary right now. So that's something that's key to remember too, is everyone here is a volunteer. And everyone's welcome to step up into these roles. So, feel free to read more about that. If you did want to become a guide or an organizer in any capacity, then anyone is welcome to email organizers@complexityadventures.com at any time. And that could be for anything. You could say, I'm an adventurer, I'm stuck, Gather's not working for me. You can send an email and someone will reply right away. If you're a guide and I need help with my live session design, email organizers and we'd be happy to help. Right now for this particular summit, myself, Eric, Sarah, and Daniel are the organizers for this particular summit. We've got a broader set of organizers that help in all sorts of community teams, which are our internal teams in this kind of decentralized community that work on anything from outreach to creating this gather space we're in right now. So there's a wider set of organizers, but we've got 4 in particular that are really on point for this summit to make sure we have as smooth a time as possible. And really, one of the main roles of the organizer is to support the guides. So any guides here who want any help at all with recording their video during this pre-summit phase, designing their live session, just figuring out how to best utilize the role and benefit others, organizers are here to serve you specifically for that. And speaking of guides, here's the guides so far that are on the website. There's actually 7 more that I have to add shortly. And what's wonderful about the guides is they come from a very diverse set of backgrounds and perspectives. You're going to get a lot of lived experience, exposure to complexity by interacting with all these guides. A really great way just to see an overview of the guides is if you just go to the website you registered on. So if you go to complexityadventures.com, this is the site you registered through to be here. Just go down to the guides section. And if you click view all guides, you can actually see everyone here. And like I was saying, there will be 7 more shortly. But say, for instance, if you look up Marie, this is Marie's profile. So you got her picture, you've got her, affiliations, some keywords, and a bio. So this is at least a little bit to go on for each of these different guides. So this is also a good resource for adventurers to just make sure, like, if I'm at the weekend, I have to chat with ProBall, I have to chat with Barb. This is a really good way just to align with different guides and make sure that you connect peer-to-peer with the people in this cohort that really resonate the most with you. It's all about the edges. It's all about the edge building in this experience. The other thing I'll point out is every guide is submitting videos for the pre-summit. So if you go to the Atlas, again, this is the same URL I sent before, right? We're back here. There's a link here about a pre-summit video playlist. So this is actually a set of videos that guides have already submitted or will submit, and feel free to reach out if you need help with this. But this is a nice little 4-minute overview for Lucia, who's a guide, and her background and perspective and approach, and possibly what she'll want to cover in her live session. So this is just a lot of great content leading into the summit that will help contextualize it, figure out who you really want to connect to and talk to and maybe get some mentorship from. So those are kind of 2 resources about guides, and we'll definitely go into what it means to be a guide more. I'm just kind of giving the overview. We've I think, belabored the point at this point about Gather and Coda as the two of the three tech platforms. Keybase is the optional one. And if you, is anyone here not in Keybase yet? I'm just curious. It's optional, so it's okay. Crean? Yeah, you're in? Okay. So basically what it'll look like is if you really want to be in this optional backend, I'm going to link this keybase.io download URL in nearby. It's an app that's separate from Gather. Eventually, someday they will be merged and it'll be smoother to use all these different tools in our community. But right now, it's a separate app. You download it for your system. You get a Keybase username. You just let us know what it is, and we'll add you to the team. And what it looks like is this. So I have several other teams that I can't collapse, but this team right here is the one for the summit. So it's complexadventure.april 2023. And we've got different channels in here, such as a general channel where everyone has been added here. We can all post to each other asynchronously. You can go into the hellos channel and just give a brief intro to yourself so everyone gets to know you. You know, if you have any questions, we can definitely raise any questions here. But this is just a nice resource. And what's great about being an adventure and complexity adventures is it's totally freeform. So there's so many different participation modes, and they're all equally valid. There will be adventurers who never want to go into Gather, but we'll just hang out here in Keybase all day, every day, and just keep posting great references and stuff like that. Great question, Michael. It's Keybase is actually being phased out in our tech stack in favor of Mattermost, I believe. And Keybase is actually not being actively developed anymore either. So that's another reason why. But we chose this probably 3 years ago now, and it served us really well. But it will be transitioning soon enough, so you'll hear more as our tech stack changes. But yeah, so that's all I want to say about Keybase right now. But going back to here, you know, the program, I showed you a brief view of the program here, which is starting to fill out. Just to step back at a higher level briefly, it is, you know, it's a 24/7 event. Like I was saying, there's 1 hour on, 1 hour off kind of throughout the weekend. That'll be kind of the overall energy flow. Different people from different time zones will constantly come in and out. It'll be a really fun environment. And it's bookmarked by an organizer session that we will run. Signal Hub threading. I don't know. Yeah, any ideas around different platforms, definitely let us know, because we have a whole tech community team of volunteers and organizers that help build out our tech stack. But going back to the summit experience, you know, we've got organizer sessions at the beginning and end of the weekend, and actually in the middle. And we live stream them as well. So you can watch them live. You can watch the recording after if you were asleep at that time. And roughly this provides a backbone to the event, where the beginning live stream or organizer session really kicks off the whole weekend. The closing one is really a celebration of everything that's happened over the weekend. Any teams that have formed over the weekend, which I'll talk about briefly, they some of them will give presentations in our closing live stream. So it's really exciting just to see all the different approaches people have taken, or purposes or missions that they've aligned around to continue their applied complexity journeys together. And then the middle point is where we actually kick off the teams. So before the middle point live stream, it's mostly about being individuals, learning about the community, meeting each other, learning about complexity. And around the time we do the middle point live stream, it's where we introduced some tooling around building teams and encourage everyone who joins the team experience, which is optional but also highly encouraged, to learn complexity by doing. It is, you know, we'll provide some infrastructure for joining a team or creating a team. And our goal as organizers is to make sure anyone who wants to join a team for the weekend does, and is a valued participant in a team. So those are kind of the end, beginning, middle kind of bookends to this whole experience that the organizers will help construct. And yeah, so that's kind of the loose overall view of what the weekend will flow like, and with a lot of granular detail, you know, in terms of the specific live sessions and stuff that you can look up in the Atlas. I have questions here. I think before we do that, I do want to touch on teams for a second. So one, well, one aspect of being a guide, and then I'll go into teams, is being a guide in Complexity Adventures is very open-ended. You might have gotten that impression already. We don't really have a specific definition or ways that people need to be a guide. There's a general sense of values and best practices to being a guide, but there's also a lot of very differentiated ways of being a guide. And it's similar for teams. Teams that have come out of Complexity Adventures have been all over the map. I mean, we have teams that are still running from the first event. We have teams that dissolved as soon as the weekend ended, and it was intended to be that way. We have teams that have applied for grants together, have written papers together, have started businesses together, have just been a learning group, an informal social group, to read books together or learn. There's all sorts of types of teams, all sorts of types of guides. So it's really choose your own adventure, and being a guide specifically in a context where teams are forming. It just, part of the role is to mentor others, so if you have a couple of adventurers who are in the weekend and they're meeting, they're getting excited, and they both, from different perspectives, they realize they really want to work on homelessness and helping with that issue in our society. Being a guide in that moment might be, I noticed you guys are, talking about this. Like, have you started a document together? Have you shared, specific ways in which you might want to help with this problem? We'll be starting teams around the middle point of the weekend. Do you want to start a team and get support from the cohort? Those are all things, and being open to that, different types of teams that might form is kind of a key skill. Nice. Okay, so I've talked a lot. That was probably a lot. This slide is fun in Jamboard because it's really, let's just sit here for a minute and raise any questions anyone has. If people want to deep dive into teams a little more, drop the question. We'll put up in the queue. We'll answer it together. How are people feeling? What's up?
Would you say that being a guide too, as you're floating through different teams and just different folks, is help connect the dots, right? So if you hear someone who is interested in, you're talking about homelessness, and if you pick up on conversations that could help feed that idea to kind of bring people together so that they know each other exist.
Yes, definitely. That is a really great way to be a guide. Is just to keep an ear out, and as you meet people over the weekend and you hear about things they're passionate about, it really does help the cohort to help build edges and to be like, hey, you're all working on starting a team to help with modeling homelessness in this way, or creating a social program to help with homelessness in this way. I've actually already talked to 2 other adventurers who are into that. Would you like to meet them? And maybe you would want to join up. So I think that's a really, really great, I would say, an umbrella guide skill. We'll talk about different types of guides, but that is probably one that's elevated up to something we all share, is that active listening skill, that making connections skill. Yeah, very, very good point. I see a yes here. Did somebody add this right now?
Just to quickly address a few of these. We recently rebranded from Complexity Weekend to Complexity Adventures. Yes. Hopefully people can dig into the deep lore. 2019 in person was ComplexityCon in San Francisco. 2020, 21, and 22, we had 2 cohorts per year, so 6 total Complexity Weekend events. And now it's 2023, and we're Complexity Adventures. How will the structure of the weekend event scaffold us, providing value from each other? Well, there's the opportunity to connect synchronously and asynchronously, and use the interactive sessions to gain unique free access to people who there's just no way you're going to bump into at a cafe, and start the threads. It's not a sprint, not a competition. We're not presenting deliverables at the end of a weekend, other than potentially just a direction and an orientation. Flow of the weekend, check out the program document. Where do I find tech support for my live session? So organizers at complexityadventures.com is always the place to send anything that a guide needs or adventurer needs. And then ideally, the guide is prepared with the kinds of things like how do you screen share, like that is shown on there too, like so that tech support isn't needed. But that's why it's great to log in early, make sure it works with your setup, that we can hear each other, that you know how to share your screen if you want to do that, and so on, so that tech support isn't needed live, but also we can be there to help that happen. Do we have a board to pin any message during the event? Main board. So yes, one option is to use Keybase. Another option is on the bottom right. There's an info board, and so you can see the calendar in Gather. That's going to be like just what events are upcoming. So you can see the event that we're in right now. And then just to the left of the calendar, it says info board. And there, if there's something to pin, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I think an organizer will have to pin it, but if you just reach out to organizers with the message, we are happy to pin it. And we will have a flow we'll get into over the weekend where we'll announce and or pin live sessions coming up. And that's a kind of a common practice we do in Gather just to keep everyone aligned. So we're definitely happy to throw other announcements or any other pin posts there. And Keybase is also a great tool to for anyone who has opted into that text backend for the cohort. You can message anything there. You can tag everyone in that Keybase team. That's a good way to pin things and share.
Just more quick ones. Is there ever going to be an in-person gathering again? We're all in person already. So locally, whenever you're ready, make it happen. If you know one other person or you already have a community or some people who you know, or you want to co-organize and you have a venue, so absolutely, let's do it. That is definitely going to have to be catalyzed from a locality up, but the imposition is not going to be from the online to choose some location and get everybody flying there or anything like that. But if there's some local region where somebody wants to do in person, it's absolutely great. How do we handle the time zone? It's a complex question. One answer is, at least as organizers, everything is in UTC, period. The dates are also different if you're in a different time zone than UTC. I know I am. And so it's important to use the calendar join link so that it's on your own calendar. And then it's also in the Gather sidebar. And we just respect that people are going to be in and out. The time zone is not even everything because we all have different circadian rhythms too. So we don't assume that somebody is going to have a given availability at a certain time just because they live in this or that place. So we just coordinate how we can. We use UTC resolutely. And then we just enjoy the synchronous times when we're both available, whatever the daylight situation is in our locations. And then we're just here to connect and sort of seed and thread and weave in the weekend, because it's really going to be about how we schedule things. And you can meet somebody and then you can talk at a different time on a different platform and so on. So this is just a starting point or like a checkpoint in the complexity adventure. This isn't like an imposition on when or how people meet.
Nice. I want to touch on this question real quick, and then I think we'll get to this one. An in-person gathering, like Daniel was saying, I don't think it in our current value system for the community, I don't think as a centralized organization, we're going to try to do a summit that's in person, like a really big gather everyone in the community in person, because it does go against our values of being as accessible as possible. You know, you have to have, it'll end up filtering everyone out who can't get a plane ticket, who can't get accommodations and go to whatever location we choose on Earth to have it. So back to Daniel's point of in-person gatherings, they're likely to be local chapter gatherings. That's I think what makes the most sense in this system. At some point, we might do an in-person gathering as a centralized organizer set, but it won't be expected to be representing the whole community. It will be some subset that inherently isn't tapping the whole community. Like it's just not realistic with flights and expenses. Yeah, we'll always have biannual online events because that aligns with our values the most in terms of getting everyone to the table, as many people as possible, as many diverse perspectives as possible. Regarding testing tech capabilities, that's really the key to this whole pre-onboarding phase. Is get comfortable. Like this URL we're in now for Gather, this is the one through the weekend. So you can pop in here at any time. You can pop in 3 hours from now and just kind of see what it's like, what affordances there are. if you go up to a whiteboard in Gather and you press X, it opens this whiteboard app. There's lots of cool things you could, as a guide, use in your live session, or as an adventurer, learn how to interact in the space and get the most out of it. Spend a little bit of time before the weekend. You can always email organizers@complexityadventures.com if you have any questions. You can ping in Keybase. There's all these different avenues where you can go for help. People are all wanting to help you, so any of those channels are great. And just really testing the tech. If you want to ping organizers and say, hey, I really just need someone to sit with me for 10 minutes and help me work through all the different tools that are in the Atlas, we're happy to do that. So yeah, take the time now really is the key answer to this question, to get comfortable. Concurrency of audio and video. Do you want to touch on that, Daniel?
I'm not exactly sure. Paul, please.
Yeah. Let me just explain what I mean. Some of the things that I want to do in the session involve people doing things concurrently and be able to both see the video as well as audio. Now, some online platform has a round robin approach to audio because it preserves bandwidth. So only one person or one participant can speak at a time. Whereas I want to create an experience in which everyone can create noise at the same time as part of the experience.
Yeah, sounds very cool. I will say, for better and for worse, indeed, multiple people are able to speak at once. Though
let me try that right now. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go. That's good. That's good.
And this is the tools that we use for organizing and for the summit. It's like they're always on. So that's what the fun is of these onboarding sessions, is to actually just test the things. And one note about Gather, just the audio, is like a guide also steps in at the technological level and can just, I think these two people can't hear each other, or like, can we just check this person's audio? So taking someone aside, especially early in the summit or even in a pre-summit event, and just like the personal touch to work through audiovisual can literally be the difference between inclusion and not. So it's important for us to just like go that extra kilometer for just making sure that everyone is like technologically able. There's going to be people on mobile only with spotty internet and lag. There's going to be people with 12 monitors. So just like keeping that scope in mind and seeing how it plays out and just adjusting from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. I see Kareen's question about developing these cards visuals in Gather. I would say any edits to the Gather space, just ping me on 101 on Keybase, or ping organizers at complexityadventures.com. On Keybase, at least, I'm at Dr. Proton, so you can just ping me at any time about anything. But I can help edit the Gather space however you like. The only rule we have about the Gather space is if we edit the Gather space for a guide, we have to reset it again. That's the only rules. But there are exceptions to the rule. So if there's this really fun structure you want to build with 42 images in some cool way, that we can put that to the side somewhere and have it up the whole time. We're open to lots of different ways of manipulating the sense of place and co-creating together. I think so I'm at the time that I told Marie that I would had to ram all this information down her throats. So I'm going to stop here. If you have any other questions, you can bring them up at any time. We still have another 45 minutes or so together. Except, just kidding, give me 2 more minutes. I really want to highlight this because Michael's here and this is just so amazing. I actually want to move this slide early. See, everything's dynamic in this community. That's the beauty. So next time I'll go over this before. One thing I really want to highlight, or I already did highlight, but I want to dig into just briefly, is just like there's a basic type of guide and shared principles and shared values and differentiated modes of being a guide, that's the case for adventurers too, right? There's different participation modes you can take on as an adventurer. You can decide to join a team or not. You can spend your whole time sharing references with everyone, and that would be really valuable and helpful to people. And that's a totally valid mode of being an adventurer. You can be multiple of these. You can be a team member and a reference sharer. You can go and review CODA documents that teams are forming and give them advice on how they're structuring their team or whatnot. There's there's a million different ways and different post-its we can add here for different types of adventure you could be. I was curious if we could spend a couple of minutes and just think on this right side of the slide, on slide 13, of what type of guide we might want to be in this cohort. And one I'll highlight that I think is amazing is what Michael is doing this cycle, where he was on a team last cohort called Network Weavers. And it's an idea of how to interface multiple communities together. And so one thing that Michael's doing, I think is just so interesting, and he's fitting into the ecosystem we've built here in the affordances and the summit affordance, the guide affordance. He's got 3 or 4 different communities out in the world that are complexity adjacent that he wants to pull into this summit. And so he's registered as a guide to set up some live sessions as meeting points for these communities that we can all participate in and join. And there might be some other guides registering from these communities or some other adventurers registering from these communities. And they're all going to be around in the summit, and they're going to be mixing in the summit cohort. It's going to be super cool. And the guide affordances of a pre-recorded video, a live session design is all being geared toward the mixing of these communities and the collaboration. So, and that's really in line with, I think, something that we as the organizers have been wanting to build in this complexity adventures space. It's a public commons. It's meant to be a public commons for anyone who's complexity adjacent to come to the table and learn about applied complexity together. There is no one particular approach that's dominant. It's a diverse group of different perspectives, and we all get to navigate between them. So I think it's a really cool way to envision being a guide as a type of community mixer. That's like the role that Michael's kind of taking on, and he still has a lot of the base guide stuff, which Marie will be going into shortly, of just general facilitation principles, values of how it is to be a guide, making sure, for instance, the voices in the back that aren't speaking up or maybe heard, or reaching out to them to see if they want to speak up. That's kind of a general guide thing that's good. But if you want to be a network weaver type guide, that might have some other principles in mind, like how do I structure my live session to mix communities really well, right? Or for instance, if you'd love to be a devil's advocate, which Marie loves to be, that's a guide type that's really good at poking at assumptions for individuals or teams that they're interacting with, and helping to really open and expand your mind, being a catalyst, being a more traditional facilitator. There's a whole history to facilitation that can be leveraged in this guide role, and that can be seen as a type of guide. Team advisor, a host, these are just amazing. And it's starting to really show us how diverse this group can be in terms of even approaches to guides. And I think that's exciting to adventurers. That's exciting to us as organizers for sure. Ecotone creator. Ecotone is something great Michaela is going to go into in one of her live sessions, which I think, if I remember correctly, is defined to be the joining between 2 different ecosystems. Or like, say you have a lake and a forest, there's certain species that really benefit by being on that ecotone. So bringing the ideas of ecotones to the table, sharing them wherever they pop up in conversation and stuff, that's a great way to be a guide. Improviser, excellent. So I don't want to belabor it too much. I want to cut into Marie's time too much, but that's pretty much the overview. Ask any questions at any time. We're all here to help each other, and I will stop sharing. Or actually, I'm going to share your deck now, Marie. So take it over. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to get, let's see, maybe before this deck shine tonight, we get a full view of each other.
Sure. Yeah, let me drop this.
Yay, I just wanted to see everyone.
Also, you can always, on the top right of Gather, it's on your side whether you have a full view or not. So you can click on any given person and you can see their image, or you can on the top right do the grid view and then you can see everyone. So you can always switch between.
Cool.
Yay.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so I just wanted to get like an energy check on everyone. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, wave, middle, down, all around. Okay, we got some stretching waves. Cool. Love it. Okay, I just want to gauge everyone's attention. There's like a lot of down. So Cool. Sean, do you want to beam me up or beam up the? Cool. All right. So Sean kind of talked briefly about, guides having some essence of facilitator, and guides used to be called facilitators and now they're called guides. But just going into what exactly is a facilitator, would love to hear some thoughts around, what a facilitator is, what you think a facilitator is.
I think for me, just to kick things off, like I've always thought of facilitator as somebody who catalyzes interaction amongst participants, whether or understanding or teams forming or any of the, just a catalyst amongst interactions of participants is one of my personal definitions.
Cool. So catalyst of energy, having people engage with each other, maybe someone who makes things easier. Does anyone else have any thoughts on facilitator or what makes a good facilitator? See, this is a good time to hate. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can also use the chat.
Like, has anyone had experience as a facilitator in the past, or I see mediator? And I think Kareen's at the library, so can't speak up audio wise, but mediator is definitely an interesting facilitation type. Marie, you want to chat about that?
Cool. Yeah, so a mediator is someone who hears everyone out and kind of brings the energy into a non-conflict kind of engagement. Thank you. I see someone's unmuted. I hear a little bit fuzziness.
Sorry.
Haptivist? Oh no, you're hiding. All right.
Michael, you got to tell us about facilitation, please.
I think it's like guides. There's as many different types of facilitators as there are guides. But if we focus on the human side, it's about being an ally to the interaction and creating a space where the conversation can be as rich as possible, whether it's in herding voices into the conversation or whether it's adding triggering fire starting kind of questions. Love starting, maybe not fire starting, but being a kinetic agent in the interactions in the space, and if it's a paid role, it can be somebody who's doing the setup and the architecting and the so there are different ways in which one can be a facilitator. But I believe here we're here to kind of bring out the best in each other.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for using the word ally. I think that's a really powerful definition or word in terms of like creating conversation, movement, momentum, asking prompts to get that energy flowing, the heart flowing, the human flowing. Cool. Sean, can you go to the next? Boop, my clicker.
And also, Marie, your connection's a little bit low. You might want to come at the midpoint between us and the house.
Right.
You need to.
All right, here we go.
I'll go.
Okay, I'm gonna walk. You guys are gonna walk with me.
It's a multimedia experience.
Someone wrote improviser, right? Here we go.
That wasn't you? I thought that had been you.
All right, let me go close to our. There you go. So a lot of is this better? It's still yellow.
It seems to be better though. Oh, it's better, yeah.
There we go. Okay, cool. So a lot being a good facilitator or an ally, as Mike mentioned, is creating psychological safety, right? And what a few notes of what that means is to build trust through awareness and connection, acknowledge who you're serving, creating shared vocabulary, connecting early and often, supporting different learning styles, harvesting wisdom in the room versus being the sage on the stage, meaning like connecting the dots. And we're going to go into some of these here. So we already created shared vocabulary, kind of some verbiage around what a facilitator is. Connecting early and often, we kind of checked in on the energy when we shifted into this portion. And then Sean, can you click to the next slide? Click. I'm just going to do this. Boop. So what we're going to do to actually connect, because I want everyone here to kind of connect with each other. So we're going to play a commonalities game. And what we're going to do is we're going to have people get together in small groups. And this is a way to just know who's in the same room as you, right? Because sometimes we go into these spaces where I think Sean was talking about a lot of one-way directional kind of information giving, whereas I think the newer model is to try and create the energies to come together to actually have conversations with each other. And it's really important for people to know who they're having conversations with. So this one way, this one game that we're playing is the commonalities game. So getting together in small groups, I'm going to have you find in Gather, going into one of the little group sessions or group areas that Sean's going to show people how to get to.